Good evening, everyone, and we'd like to call our meeting to order. Before we begin our meeting, I'd like to ask you if we can take a moment of silence before proceeding to our agenda. I would like to have a moment of silence for the victim of the tragic shooting in Danforth Avenue in Toronto last night. Last I heard, an 18-year-old woman and 10-year-old girl were killed, and there are 13 more people injured. So please, let's stand up and have a moment of silence. Thank you. You may be seated. Confirmation of agenda. Any new item? Confirmed. Thank you. Confirmation of minute of June 25th, 2018, that the Ottawa Police Service Board confirmed the minute of 25th June 2018. On the minute? Okay. Thank you. Declaration of interest? Committee meeting, and we have the complaint committee meeting, and I'll ask the chair of that committee, Councillor Turney, to give us a little bit of update on.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Complaints Committee met in camera on July 3rd. We reviewed the service complaint. Later in camera, the board will be reviewing the committee's recommendations with respect to the disposition of the complaint.
On the chair's report, received. Thank you. So we need to add one item of business to the agenda, and if I can have your approval, because we have postponement of the October board meeting. As you know, it's going to happen on the day after election, October 22nd. So we'll add this to our agenda, and we'll deal with it as the last item of the agenda. And are we in agreement? Thank you. So we'll add the item. Thank you very much, folks. Item number 2, attendance at the Ontario Association of Police Service Board Labour Seminar, that the Ottawa Police Service Board approved the attendance of member Laustein and Executive Director Ferrero at the Ontario Association of Police Service Board, OAPSB, Labour Seminar being held in Toronto on September 2018. On the item, carried. Thank you. Item number 3, contracted award, Swansea Seasonal Vehicle Storage Building, that the Ottawa Police Service Board approved the award of construction contract for the amount of $752,313, including construction contingency to Mishani? Is it Mishani or Mikani? What's the name of the company? Anyway, it sounds like Mishani Construction Incorporated for the construction of a new storage facility on 2799 Swansea Crescent. On the item? Okay. Item number 4, appointment of Special Constable, OC Transport. Chief's report that the Ottawa Police Service Board approved the appointment of the individual listed in Document 1 as a Special Constable pursuant to Section 53 of the Police Service Act in accordance with the term and conditions set forth in the attached approval of appointment form. On the item? Approved. Thank you. Item number 5 is a business plan semi-annual report that the Ottawa Police Service Board received this report for information. On the item, received. Thank you. My apology. Did we skip the chief's verbal report, or we held the chief's verbal report? We held it? Okay, thank you. Item number 6, complaint report, part 5, Police Service Act, second quarter. And Chief's report that the Ottawa Police Service Board received this report for information. Received? Thank you. Item number 7 is report on SRU investigation. Also, Chief's report that the Ottawa Police Service Board received this report for information. Received. Legal Service Status Report 2018 second quarter. Deputy City Solicitor report that the Ottawa Police Service Board received this report for information. Received. Thank you. Item number 9, outstanding board inquiries and motions for July 28, Executive Director's report that the Ottawa Police Service Board received this report for information. Item number 10, Board Monitoring Requirement Status Report, second quarter 2018, Executive Director's report that the Ottawa Police Service Board received this report for information. Item number 11, letters of commendation, is Chief's report that the Ottawa Police Service Board received this report for information. Thank you. The added item is requirement to move the October board meeting. The municipal election will be held on Monday, October 22nd. This is the same day as our October board meeting. I'm looking for a board's approval to postpone this meeting by 1 week to October 29. And the motion read that the Ottawa Police Service Board approve postponing its meeting scheduled for October 22nd to October 29 as a result of a municipal election taking place on October 22nd. Moved by Vice Chair Sandy Smallwood. All in favor? Okay, thank you. So with that, we'll go to item 1 with Chief's verbal report. Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for recognizing, taking a moment to recognize the 2 victims of who passed away as a result of the tragic incident in Toronto, and the other victims who hopefully will survive their wounds. And to the first responders, I think another indication of the types of calls for service that our first responders, professional first responders, respond to on a regular basis. I have a brief verbal update for the board this evening. Every summer we increase the total number of foot and bike patrol officers in the downtown core. As part of that intensified focus, this coming long weekend we will be conducting another community safety initiative in the Byward Market and Montreal Road and Vanier areas. Since May, these initiatives have resulted in a variety of proactive enforcement activities aimed at ensuring the quality of life and experience in these areas of our city. We plan to continue with this focus into September. Our school resource officers have been redeployed to bike patrol this summer and have been very active responding to calls citywide. In June, our SROs responded to more than 140 calls for service that included proactive measures like identifying problem addresses to counter drug activity, aggressive panhandling, and other criminal activity in our neighborhoods. In fact, just last week, 2 SROs on bike patrol arrested a bank robbery suspect. Having these officers out on their bikes in our city's communities gives them access to areas not easily reached by vehicles and increases police presence in areas impacted by street-level violence. And these SROs supplement the other officers that are out on their bikes and on their feet, not foots. I wanted to inform the board that following the review of our criminal investigations areas, our DART team has been realigned into a new Prevention and Intervention of Violence in Ottawa, or PIVOT unit. So you'll start hearing the word PIVOT a lot as opposed to DART. This unit will employ traditional methods of enforcement, but will also focus on incorporating preventative measures, working on community cohesion, as well as employing intervention techniques. Our officers felt it was important that we weren't only in neighborhoods when there was a crisis or a problem. Our community has also been quite clear on this point as well. We needed to be there more often in order to foster trust with residents most impacted by street-level violence. Our PIVOT members will look to become more integrated with these communities we serve by attending community meetings and events to encourage community engagement. Pivot is based on the work that was done by the OPS and its partners for the new Ottawa Street Violence and Gang Strategy Plan that was released last November. And on Friday, our new Minister of Community Safety and Correctional Services dropped by our Elgin Street office for a meeting with myself and Acting Inspector Tim Hodgins, followed with a ride-along by members of our Pivot unit, led by Sergeant Wright O'Neill. We had a good discussion with Mr. Thibodeau, and were able to discuss the issues that we are seeing right here in Ottawa. And the Minister saw those issues firsthand while out with our officers and had direct, unfettered access to our patrol officers and our DART unit. So we're really pleased with his initiative in coming out with our officers and having some direct discussions. Our traffic services officers have been busy this summer in their efforts to educate the public about road safety. With the recent release by the City of Ottawa's highest collision intersections, the Ottawa Police Service is working with our partners at Safer Roads Ottawa to ensure that we are doing proactive work to reduce the number of those collisions. Distracted and aggressive driving remain two of our key focus areas, with officers out in the community conducting blitzes specifically targeted at these types of specific infractions. We've worked collaboratively with our frontline officers on bikes to spot these types of drivers and then have them pulled over down the road by one of our traffic officers. We will also be relaunching Project Erase, which will be specifically targeting dangerous motorcycle driving in the coming months. 2 officers from the Ministry of the Environment will join our team in an effort to reduce motorcycle racing on our streets. We will also be partnering with the OPP for a project targeting aggressive motorcycle driving on our 400 series highways. Our robbery and break-and-enter units continue to show outstanding leadership by coordinating arrests with the help of our frontline officers. On July 16th, officers responded to a break-in at a store in Westboro and soon located a suspect that matched the description relayed by the robbery unit. Upon arresting the man, officers recovered more than $8,300 worth of merchandise and connected him to 13 other break-and-enters across the city. The next day, the unit responded to an attempted carjacking. The unit circulated still photos from area security cameras and discovered that the suspect had been seen attempting to break into multiple vehicles. Frontline officers located the suspect in the city's West End and arrested him after a short foot chase. Finally, Mr. Chair, I wanted to provide a short update to the board regarding the diversity audit. Last month, the newly hired team from Greybridge Malcolm presented an overview of how they will conduct a diversity audit at the Ottawa Police Service this year. The team has begun the audit work and is currently reviewing significant Ottawa Police Service documents, including policies, procedures, training, deployment, and community engagement and consultation efforts. Planning for engagement is also underway to ensure that community and the police involvement in the audit process through interviews. That consultation will take place from August through October, and the consultation will include focus group questionnaires and interviews. Regular updates on this important project will be provided monthly. And finally, the Ottawa Police Service has had a strong response to the request for feedback on the fee for background checks, with more than 2,900 surveys completed in July by the public during the input period. The responses overwhelmingly favored that volunteers continue to receive a free background check. Based on this input, staff are finalizing fee and budget options for the board to consider at the September meeting. Mr. Chair, subject to questions, that's my report to the board.
Thank you very much, Chief. Can you repeat the number? How many you received? 2,900
responses to the survey that we put out.
So you folks going through those numbers and make the recommendation in the next board meeting in September, I believe?
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Member Smallwood have a question, but before I turn it to the Vice Chair, you didn't speak about the federal funding we received from Minister McKenna on behalf of Minister Goodell. Is that something you can tell the board about it?
So, Mr. Chair, that's the funding that we received from the Public Safety Canada federal government with respect to increasing our capacity at the merit table to help us deal with countering violent extremism. So it's a partnership that we have with the RCMP in our community that is able to identify members in our community from a proactive perspective that may have leniency towards terrorism or radicalization. And once those individuals show those signs, we're able to engage them quicker and quicker at the merit table and provide them the supports they need to prevent any further radicalization. So we really appreciate the funding from the federal government to help us counter violent extremism in our community.
And the funding continue for 5 years, Chief?
It's a 5-year
commitment
grant, and it flows directly to merit and not through the police service.
Oh, okay. All right, I'll turn to Vice Chair. Question to the Chief. Anybody else? Question to the Chief?
Thank you. You, in part, answered the question I was going to have for you. It was with respect to your blitz that you did, and I thought it was such a good news story. One of the things we've heard in the meetings with the public is how they want to see officers out there more on foot, on bike. And but I was really surprised. This is like an extra benefit. Is it accurate that one officer on a bike had discovered 18 people, laid 18 charges in less than 2 hours for distracted driving?
Yes.
Wow. That just seems
I've been on holidays, but I've been monitoring the events. I do recall seeing that, and my staff is confirming that, yes.
Wow. That's just I hope you're going to do more of that, because that's really great news.
Yeah, absolutely. It's certainly one thing we continue to hear is that we need to continue the efforts in changing driver behavior.
Yeah.
Education is one component, and our partners do that with us, but enforcement is the other tool that we hope does have an impact.
Well, great work.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Madame Velikat. Oui.
Chef, you mentioned 2,900 people had responded to the survey. That seems to me like a pretty high number considering the time of year. Maybe it's a sign that our residents are getting more engaged with us. Can you tell me if that number is higher or lower than previous types of surveys of that kind?
Since you were on holiday, maybe the Director General will answer that.
I can tell you that the response has started before I went on holidays, but the volunteer sector is very well organized. And I think it's a great indication that when we do put out these surveys that our community is engaged and they're mobilized on a very obviously an important issue that impacts them. So we're very pleased with the input that we're getting. The reason we do go out and get surveys and get input is to get that direct feedback from those who are mostly impacted by change. And we want to make sure that we are recommending the right public policy decisions for the board to consider. So it is very high with respect to a specific topic issue in getting that number of responses. So we're very pleased with the response.
That beyond Madame Velikat. Thank you very much. Merci. Any other question to the Chief's verbal report? No? Okay. On the Chief's verbal report, receive. Thank you very much, folks, and that will conclude our meeting in the open session. I need a motion to move in camera. So moved by Member Smallwood. Thank you very much, folks, and have a great summer and good evening.